It was reported last week that the Philadelphia Eagles would confirm their new coaching staff by the end of this week, and now reports are beginning to trickle down concerning the team's plans to shake up their offensive coaching staff. The Birds still have to find a new wide receiver coach and offensive coordinator, while Matt Burke appears to be the man who will take over defensive line responsibilities, but two new rumours surfaced today that cite an internal hire and a pair of new names added into the mix. But what does all of this mean for the future of the offensive coordinator position? That's what we're going to be taking a look at today. But before we get started though, guys, thank you for taking time out of your busy days to watch this video. If you're not subscribed already, we're drafting you with the 21st overall pick to play wide receiver in our offense. I'm going to sling you as much Eagles content as I can. I'm lobbing you up the subscribe deep bomb. I just need you to catch it in the end zone and be a focal point of our offense, okay? Don't make me trade you to Dallas. Hit that subscribe button and let's have some fun this offseason. And as always, you can get your daily dose of Philadelphia sports coverage from myself and all of our writers over at phillysportsnetwork.com. The first report comes from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, and it states that the Eagles are adding a passing game coordinator role to quarterback coach Press Taylor's title. Now, the possibility of avoiding hiring a new offensive coordinator altogether is growing increasingly large, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. If the Eagles' current QB coach becomes the passing game coordinator, it would somewhat negate the need for an offensive coordinator, knowing that there's already a run game coordinator in place. And for context, here is how the current offensive staff looks. So Doug Peterson sits at the top of the tree, and then interestingly, you've got Juice Staley, who's already an assistant head coach, and Jeff Stoutland, who coordinates the run game as well as coaching the offensive line. So taking a quarterback coach and a pass game coordinator sort of sees both elements of that OC role filled without the need for a play caller, which, as we know, Doug Peterson likes to do anyway. This could also be an insurance policy in case they don't get the names they wanted. We know there have been several high-profile offensive coordinator candidates that have almost slipped through the cracks, so to speak. They've either interviewed or been poached up by other teams. But there are reasons to be concerned. We know for a fact, for instance, that internal hires are beginning to wear thin with this organisation, and with the entire premise behind the growth firing being that outside influence was highly needed after the offense grew stale, Taylor may be a budding coordinator himself, but are we really just going to see more of the same here? The other thing to bear in mind is that it's not like Wentz took a significant step forward under Taylor. Their relationship is reported to be much more like a friendship as opposed to a coach to player, which is fine, but then there are issues like the constant fumbles and poor decisions when it comes to ball security, which are more than coachable, but remain just as prominent in 2019. If the Eagles aren't going to hire an offensive coordinator, then this does seem like a strong band-aid. But is it strong enough? That's where the next two moves come in. The second report today comes from ESPN's Tim McManus, who cites that former Mississippi State pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Andrew Breiner is on the way to Philadelphia, along with former Broncos offensive coordinator Rich Scangarelo. Both will have a role in this coaching staff, but if we've already got a pass game coordinator and a run game coordinator, unless one of those guys is going to be a wide receiver coach, then surely there are too many chefs in the kitchen. Right? Let's start with the most intriguing name though, and that's Rich Scangarelo, who spent last year as the Broncos offensive coordinator in a tale of two halves. The first was an offense filled with a lot of pre-snap motion, a lot of misdirection and counter plays, and play action looks to really open up the playbook and try and keep defenses honest. Sexy. The other half was bad play calling that led to numerous players, including star running back Philip Lindsay and quarterback Joe Flacco, throwing him under the bus. Not so sexy. The good news though is that Scangarello wouldn't be expected to call plays, and prior to his stint in Denver, where the offense ranked 28th in yards per game, he spent 2 years as the QB coach in San Francisco and is of course a graduate of the Shanahan coaching tree. Now, if Scangarello is brought in to essentially mentor Press Taylor, then this isn't a bad thing at all. You can definitely make the argument that the Broncos offense was held back by Flacco, and if his offensive philosophy really does bring so much mystery, then injecting and molding a coordinator makes sense here. The third name here is Andrew Breiner, who coordinated Mississippi State's passing game, where names like Tommy Stevens did okay under his guidance, but not exceptional. However, what is really interesting to note here is that during his first season at MSU, he helped Nick Fitzgerald lead the FBS in 100+ rushing yard games by quarterbacks. We know the Eagles have an emphasis on getting Wentz into open space, and perhaps this kind of mentality and outside vision can aid with that new new plan. Until moves are confirmed, we can only speculate, but it certainly looks as though the Eagles are adopting a coordinator by committee approach. It's not a bad move, especially if they couldn't bring in the big name they wanted, but is it the right move? At the end of the day, I would much rather have a group of the right individuals as opposed to the wrong individual with the right title, and that's what this comes down to. The Eagles need to have the right people in place to make this work, and maybe an offensive coordinator isn't needed with Doug Peterson around, so why not delegate those tasks that may have been a little bit too much or too little for Mike Groh, spread it out and gain that knowledge from someone like Scangarelo, who clearly wants to be a bit more creative, and bring in the vision of Andrew Breiner, who has helped really mould a really solid dual threat back in Nick Fitzgerald. Of course, wide receiver coach is up in the air, but it looks as though Aaron Moorhead could well be the guy out of Vanderbilt, and as you know from my video last week, I'm quite high on that hire as well. So while it seems to be unconventional, I don't think there's a reason to panic yet. We've seen the San Francisco 49ers carry a very similar model all the way to a Super Bowl appearance. The worrying part is though that if, like Kyle Shanahan, you get to the big game and you lay an egg and your game management is terrible, you take 100% of the blame. You can't pass that off onto a coordinator, and there's a lot more ownership and accountability, something that, as we know, the Eagles are very high on. But what do you think of this? Are the Eagles going for an offensive coordinator by committee approach? Is it going to work? Let me know down in the comments below, guys. From myself, Liam Jenkins, it will be amazing if you could leave this video a like and, of course, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.